Hello. As most of my philosophy and science students are also enrolled in great books, I'm going to do a quick flip class content crossover. Uh, we've been looking at Goethe in our great books course. However, it's important to note that Goethe spent much of his adult life, indeed most of it, engaged in scientific research uh, rather than literary work. Um, he was famed during his lifetime for his work in anatomy, zoology or biology, geology, optics, color theory, a whole range of scientific disciplines. Um, and he was also a practitioner and a bureaucrat and administrator in these areas. So, in that sense, why I want to bring Goethe into the philosophy and science um, course is to show uh, just how influential he really was for the scientific story as well as for the literary story of Romanticism. So, Goethe's famous view on science was that only everybody can know the truth. For Goethe, science was a profoundly collective experience. Um, and I think this view of science as a collective experience uh, had a strong impact upon Popper's view of science. Um, that the, Science requires a collective mobilization of experience and criticism and experiments and experimenters to ensure that experiments are replicable, that their results are criticizable, um, and they are not conducted in obscurity and isolation, um, uh, and in that sense, immunity from criticism and from replication. So uh, there's that Goethean view of science as a collective enterprise, which was often set against the Newtonian view of science as the work of a solitary genius. Um, and in Popper's view, I think both of these come together in a certain extent. The Goethe's view of the scientific community, his sort of Leibnizian naturalism sort of view of the cosmos, and Newton's versus Newton's sort of mathematical approach to the cosmos and his individualism. For Popper seemed to be drawing these two strands together and sees them playing out in a person of Einstein as the individual mathematical genius, however, one that's also operating within a community of scientists, and is prepared to subject his excellence to criticism and to collective testing in a way that could potentially undermine his whole project um, with the aid of the experimentation by others. So that kind of in that sense, Popper was should be seen also as a sociologist of science, a sociologist of the tribe of scientists. Um, and I think why this Goethean view that only everyone can know the truth, as opposed to, say, the truth being in the pocket of some prophets or some people with individuals with particular insight or genius, is that often is the case that everyone may think they are an Einstein or a Newton, but very few actually are, and that's why we need people around us. We need other people to put us back in our place, to just double check our work, to make sure we're not going off into some obscurity and not going off in a direction that's absolutely nonsense. And the thing is, uh, if we have those people around, and if they still uh, support what we're doing, you know you're on the right track. And it was, I think so. So in that sense, that the Goethean attitude towards science, and perhaps also some of his Leibnizian and naturalistic sort of cosmological views, also can be seen to have been uh, greatly influential in the tradition that Popper's drawing on. Um, yeah, so I think that's the uh, that's pretty much the point I want to make. That um, Goethe, not only a profound literary figure, but profoundly influential in the story of science, particularly the story of German science and the tradition of the German scientific thought that Popper was ingrained in. And Although Popper looked beyond this tradition, it's nonetheless the case that we really couldn't have philosophy of science in the 20th century without Goethe. So short point, but crucial point that. Often these courses that we're running here, the content does overlap, and what we learn in one particular class often has a bearing in another in a very strange sort of way. So by taking literary courses and scientific courses, at the end of the day, you get a more rounded picture, and see how influential, and can be able to see how influential literary figures often have been for uh, scientific thought, and how scientific thought then also filtered through back into the literature. So that's my brief point today. Thank you.